The morning began the way mountains prefer, quiet, unbothered, indifferent to human ambition. Cold air clung to the pine needles like breath held too long. Frost glazed the ground in silver patches, catching the early sun one shard at a time. From the workshop behind my cabin drifted the faint scent of walnut shavings, left over from the desk I had sanded the night before. Honest work leaves honest smells. They settle deep, somewhere beneath memory. Ellie handed me a thermos strong enough to wake the dead and gave me a look that said, "Don't disappear into the woods all day again." She knew me well enough to understand that the mountain often stole my attention and rarely gave it back. "I'll be back before lunch," I promised. It wasn't a lie, it just wasn't Destiny's plan. The ATV hummed steadily as I rode toward the North Ridge, following a route I'd traveled hundreds of times over the last 2 decades. I knew every bend, every outcropping of stone, every place winter storms like to drop trees like careless punctuation marks. My plan was simple: check boundary markers, clear storm degree, and return home with dirt on my boots and peace in my head. Halfway up the ridge, something caught my eye. A line. Too straight, too clean, too intentional. The engine slowed under my hand before my mind fully registered why. Instinct has a way of acting faster than thought when something doesn't belong. I killed the engine and listened. No chainsaws, no generators, no voices, just the mountain breathing. I stepped forward, boots brushing pine needles aside, and the trees opened like a curtain revealing a lie. There it stood. A house. Not a cabin, not a hunting shack. A house. Glass walls, stone columns, a wraparound deck polished to magazine perfection. Fresh sawdust dusted the porch like powdered sugar. It looked as though it had been lifted from a luxury real estate brochure and dropped directly into wilderness that never asked for it. My stomach fell in a way that had nothing to do with surprise and everything to do with certainty. You don't need a map to know when something is wrong. But I checked anyway. GPS, parcel overlays, survey pins, deed records I'd verified and re-verified over 20 years of ownership. The red boundary lines glowed calmly on my screen, indifferent to my rising pulse. The structure wasn't near my land. It wasn't brushing a property line someone might have misread. It was deep inside my land, dead center, built as if the mountain belonged to someone else. I didn't shout, I didn't storm the door or demand answers from empty windows. I didn't react the way people expect when they see theft made physical. I reacted the way a lawyer does when the world stops making sense. I documented everything. Panic makes people reckless. Procedure makes them dangerous. And something in my bones told me this wasn't an innocent mistake. This was deliberate, confident, planned. The opening move in a game the other side believed they had already won. I walked slowly around the structure. The gravel beneath my boots angered me more than the house itself. Someone had hauled it here, spread it, leveled it, planned a work site on land they didn't own. That takes time and confidence requires motive. The details sharpened as I circled. Reinforced deck, real stone columns, custom windows rated for mountain winters. This wasn't a weekend project. It was engineered, financed, scheduled. Inside, sawdust hung in the air like fog. Cabinets waited in unopened boxes. Electrical wiring curled from open junctions. No furniture, no personal items, just the skeleton of someone else's dream. And silence, the wrong kind. No tools left behind, no scraps, no signs of a crew packing up for the day. It felt like abandonment under instruction. Leave nothing, say nothing, disappear. Then I noticed the tire tracks leading away from the rear. Deep, fresh, equipment haulers. Whoever built this didn't just trespass, they fled. I pulled out my phone and began recording. North Ridge, 10:14 a.m. Structure located approximately half a mile inside property boundary. My voice stayed steady. Ellie once told me my legal tone sounded like a blade being sharpened. I never argued with her on that point. As I spoke, a thought settled uncomfortably into place. They hadn't tried to hide this. The house stood in an open clearing, proud, visible, almost defiant, like a declaration, like the kind of confidence you see in court when someone believes consequences are reserved for other people. I sent Ellie one text: "Come to the North Ridge, bring the drone." She replied 4 seconds later, "On my way." By the time her SUV climbed the ridge, the sun had risen enough to put the house fully on display. Ellie stepped out, took one look, and exhaled through her teeth. Someone made a very expensive mistake. We confirmed the boundaries. The drone rose, capturing every angle. 3 clean-cut stumps appeared on the monitor: old-growth oaks, timber trespass, treble damages. Illegal was one thing, dangerous was another. The structural flaws revealed themselves quickly: shallow footings, loose fill, no reinforcement, a collapse waiting for gravity's permission. Under abatement doctrine, removal was not just legal, it was necessary. We called Joe, then Tom. Neither asked unnecessary questions. By the time the excavators arrived, everything had been documented: GPS overlays, drone footage, timestamps, evidence layered carefully like stone. This wasn't anger, this was correction. Demolition, when done correctly, isn't chaos, it's choreography, slow, controlled, respectful of weight and consequence. The structure groaned as the first beam surrendered exactly where Tom predicted. Dust rose gently, like the house was exhaling its last lie. And then the bucket tore through drywall and revealed something that stopped us cold. A steel utility box hidden inside the wall. Inside it, a folder. Blueprints, expansion plans, Phase 2. Not just one house, an annexation. "This isn't trespass, this is intent," Ellie said quietly. She was right. We resumed. The deck collapsed in controlled sections, every movement recorded, every fracture documented. This was no tantrum, this was procedure. Then the Porsche arrived, too polished, too confident, wrong for the ridge. She stepped out like the mountain had personally offended her, heels sinking into pine needles, sunglasses oversized, authority borrowed and worn poorly. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. I sipped my coffee and let silence do the work. "Are you lost?" I asked calmly. She laughed sharply. "This is my property." "No, it isn't," I replied. She claimed HOA authority. Ellie corrected her jurisdiction. She waived contracts, forged contracts, and then she handed one to me on camera. A scanned signature pulled from a public deed. Forgery. Sirens followed. The sheriff reviewed footage. No arrests. Escalation proper. The matter moved where it belonged. The next day, retaliation arrived wearing federal letters. An anonymous EPA complaint. Staged debris. Convenient timing. Trail cameras told the truth. The same SUV, midnight dumping, same people. Federal charges replaced threats. Court followed. Evidence stacked neatly against intention. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Claims dismissed with prejudice. Fees awarded. Criminal referrals issued. The HOA president lost her title. Jurisdiction maps were corrected. Investigations widened. Neighbors spoke. The mountain exhaled. Weeks later, we held a gathering on the clearing where the house had stood.
Firelight replaced glass reflections. Laughter replaced entitlement. Deputy Miller stood beside the fire and nodded toward the ridge. Some people forget that land remembers. I watched sparks rise into the dark, drifting upward like quiet truths finally allowed into the air. The mountain didn't belong to me, but it knew who stood their ground, and that was enough.